Champagne. It's my first show, so I'm going to give it a good send-off. Here's to success for Thom's table. Not bad for cheap California champagne. And what did I bring to Thom's table? Red velvet cake. It's very popular now, but it's not the way I remember it when I was a little boy. The red velvet cake that my mom used to make me. Nowadays it looks like more like chocolate cake, and it's supposed to be bright red. So this is the cake that my mom made back in the early 60s. We're going to start out with a stick of butter, a quarter of a pound, and add to it 1.5 cups of sugar. And we'll cream that until it's fluffy. Just take a minute. All right, nice and fluffy. We'll add 2 eggs, one at a time, and see if I can add them one at a time without getting both of them in. There, that's good. You want to make sure they're incorporated before you add the next one, and that seems to be looking very nice. And here's the second egg. All right, when that's creamed, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of vanilla. I'll do that on low. And here's the thing that makes it red. 2 bottles of red food coloring. I'm going to add this on very low. We want the cake to be red. We don't want Thom to be red. Looks rather like zombie batter at this point, but that's all right. It will look delicious at the end. It's pretty hot here in the studio, so everything's mixing rather well. The butter's nice and soft. You just want to give it a scrape and make sure everything's incorporated. Now the next thing to add is 2.5 cups of flour. And the leavening ingredients, I like to put it through a sifter because sometimes things like baking soda, they lump up. That's a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of baking soda, and only a teaspoon of cocoa. I think maybe the problem with most of the red velvet cakes nowadays is they add too much chocolate. A lot of people think that a red velvet cake and a chocolate cake is the same thing. And there's the problem. All right, I sifted those. I find the easiest way to mix the dry ingredients is to put it in a food storage bag and shake it up. It's very neat and clean. It does a good job. And I'll just add that. Let me turn this down so I don't end up wearing it. And add that all to the creamed mixture until it's just combined. And then to that, the final ingredient, a teaspoon of vinegar, white vinegar, and a cup of buttermilk. Combine those and add it to the ingredients. This will provide the acid to make the baking soda leaven the whole thing. That's almost all ready. Just give it a quick scrape here. And it's almost ready to go into the pan. See how bright red that is. Not like the rather chocolatey things one finds in the shops nowadays. Isn't it beautiful? Very red velvety. I'm just going to remove the paddle. I'll give you a nice look at that, and I'll remove the paddle, and I'll put it into a 10-inch pan. I've lined the pan with strips of baking parchment, and I've cut a baking parchment into a circle to fit into the bottom. You can spray the pan with pan release, or you can butter and flour it if you want. I just like to use the baking parchment, and we'll put the cake batter in there. We'll get it in the oven. We'll start the whole thing going. I think that's everything. We'll spread it out, and I've got the oven preheated to 350, and it'll go into a 350 oven for 35 minutes. 35. All right. And here we go, into the oven. Set the alarm for 35. And we'll frost it afterward. Okay. A little more of that California champagne. The next step is the buttercream. The red velvet cakes that you're finding now are using cream cheese buttercream. And that's not the original frosting that was used on the red velvet cake. The red velvet recipe came with its own recipe for buttercream, and it starts with 2 cups of milk and a 1/4 cup of flour. And those are cooked together until it gets thick. I'm just using a whisk to incorporate the flour into the milk. And then I'll stir it while it's cooking until it thickens. It won't take too long. It'll thicken before it comes to a boil. And it'll somewhat resemble a custard or a pudding. And that'll be added to the creamed butter to make a buttercream that's just not too sweet, but definitely not cream cheese. Lots of times when things are brought back after they've been out of style for a while, there are a little bit of change to them, and the cream cheese is one of the changes. But this will be the original recipe from the 60s with the buttercream that was intended for the red velvet cake. All right, this is going to take some time. And it's thick enough now. As you can see, it's not splashing around. And it leaves a nice trace of my finger along the wooden spoon. So you want to cool this down before adding it to the buttercream. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this. I'm going to put this into a bowl. Okay. And then put this bowl into a larger bowl with ice and water. And that will cool it down very nicely. You don't want to have this to be very cold, because when you add it to the butter, if it's too cold, it'll cause the mixture to curdle. So just bring it down to room temperature. So I'm going to leave that in the bowl of ice and water and stir it occasionally until it cools down. Okay, well, I'll meet you at the mixer with the butter, and we'll start creaming that, and we'll continue the procedure. Buttercream. I have a pound of butter here, 4 sticks, 2 cups of powdered sugar, a teaspoon of vanilla. I'll put these all in the bowl. And this needs to cream for 10 minutes. It's going to become very white, a very nice contrast to the red cake layers. Let's put this on the machine, and I'll let it go for 10 minutes. I remember my mother doing this when I was a child, and she didn't have an upright standing mixer like this, so I think it probably broke her arm. What a good mom. All right, we'll just let that cream for 10 minutes, and I'll come back and add the cooked milk and flour. It's looking good. It still needs a little bit more time. You know, this recipe came to my mother on a purple Ditto, and those of you who are old enough to remember getting tests that had purple Dittos, and we all loved the smell of those. And I always made sure that she made this for my birthday. And when my son found out about it, he made sure that I make it every year for his birthday. Hey, we're still mixing. It takes 10 minutes, and it could be a long time. So in the meantime, the French. I think 10 minutes are up. We've been creaming this for quite a long time. I'll shut it off and show it to you. You can see how white it is from all the creaming. The next thing, actually, there's no reason to take it from the mixer because I'm going to add that cooked milk that we cooled off in the ice bath. And if you want to, you don't have to put it in an ice bath. You can put it in a bowl and refrigerate it overnight. Just make sure you return it to a room temperature. If it's too cold and you add it to the buttercream, the two temperatures is going to cause the temperature difference is going to cause it to curdle. And it's a good idea to press a little bit of cellophane into the top to prevent a skin from forming. And I'll just put this on low. And I'll add this cooked. You can see it's a little bit like a pudding, but it's not sweet. And I'll just add this gradually to the creamed butter. And once that's incorporated, we're ready to finish our red velvet cake. Here's our finished buttercream, light and fluffy, very white, and definitely not cream cheese. Okay, I'm just waiting for the timer to go off. It's almost ready. As soon as I hear that timer, I'll take it out of the oven. It's going to look really nice and still look very red, even though it's completely done. I can smell it now, and it smells really good. Yes, very good. Timer, come on, timer. Let's see that timer go off. You know what? I think it's almost time. I'll make the timer go off. How's that? Yeah, it was going to go anyway. All right, 350, 35 minutes. Beautiful cake, red velvet. Yay. Let's frost that sucker. Here's our red velvet cake, baked and cooled and still in the pan. Next, I'll take it out of the pan, we'll cut it, and we'll frost it. I wish you could be here to smell this. Smells nice, tastes great. Okay, I'm taking it out of the pan. I'm taking this baking parchment off. The cake has a little bit of a dome. I'm going to cut that dome off. That'll be the first thing. And I'm going to make crumbs out of this. A lot of people like to garnish a red velvet cake with crumbs, and I'll do that too. I just have my own little take on garnishing with crumbs. And I'm going to put this dome, I'm going to put this cake into the food processor over here. This will make some nice red crumbs. Look at how bright red that is. It's not like the cakes that you see in the shops nowadays, which a lot of people just confuse for chocolate cake. And chocolate cake it definitely isn't. Okay, let's whiz this around and make some red crumbs. There we go. Just until it makes crumbs. Just a couple seconds, really. And they're beautiful red crumbs. I'm just going to put them in this bowl. It'll be a lot easier to work with them later on. Don't they look great? Red velvet crumbs, they're going to make a great garnish for this cake. It's going to look wonderful. Okay, let's go on and finish off the cake. Okay, we've cut the dome off the cake and we've made some wonderful red velvet crumbs with that. Now I'm going to take what's left of it and I'm going to cut it in half because we want a nice filled red velvet cake. So I've cut the cake in half and I'm going to move it to this 12-inch cardboard with a 12-inch doily. And we're going to get the buttercream and fill it and finish it off. I'm filling a pastry bag with our buttercream so I can fill the cake. I have a star tip on the end, which I'll use later on when we finish off the cake. And I'm just going to use this now to fill the red velvet cake. It's a lot easier to use a pastry bag. It makes everything easy and quick. And then I'll put the second layer on top of that and we'll finish it off. And here it is. I'm going to just put that right down on top of it. And here's the baking parchment I had on. I'll just peel that off. It has a nice smooth surface that I can finish frosting. Okay, I'm going to finish this off. I'm still going to use the pastry bag, and I'll cover the sides first. And then I'll cover the top. I'll smooth the whole thing off with a spatula. And then we'll see how nicely we can garnish it with those red velvet crumbs that we made. All right, I need a little bit more buttercream in the pastry bag. If you don't have a pastry bag, you can just use your spatula and frost it with that. All right, we're done. I'll get my spatula and we'll smooth this out. I'll just run it along here. Anything extra I'll put back in the bowl. We'll use it later on to finish off the cake. And also, if you have a plastic scraper, you can use that to frost the cake as well. Take it from the edge and work toward the middle. And I think we're ready to finish it off. It's looking very nice. Cake is all frosted. It's time to finish it off. I've got a few little magic tricks to garnish it with the crumbs that we made earlier. I've got a large slicing knife, and with that, I'm just going to mark off portions on the cake. First in half, and then in quarters. It'll help you serve it, and it'll also help you decorate the cake. As you'll see in a minute, I keep turning it and dividing it. I think I'm going to end up with 16 slices. They're filled and they're rich, so that should be enough for your guests. If they want more, you can give them a slice and a half, or even two. For the ones with hearty appetites, okay, it's divided into 16 pieces. Now, the next thing to do to garnish it, I've taken a 10-inch cake circle and a 3-inch round cookie cutter, and I cut a hole in the middle of the cake circle, and I just slip the cookie cutter in there and center it and place it right on the cake. And I'm going to take some of these red velvet crumbs and I'm just going to drop them onto the cake right in the middle of the circle. And the cardboard will prevent them from getting all over the rest of the cake. It's a nice little way to garnish the cake. It'll create a little red centerpiece in the middle. Okay, that's done. Now that the center is filled with crumbs, I'm going to remove this. We don't need this anymore. And you can see what we've got. Now I'm going to take the pastry bag. I'm going to decorate the top, and we'll see how that looks, okay? We'll just do a little circle like this, and we'll fill in that area that we measured out before. Just start from the middle, make a little backwards S, and a nice little curve like that. We're going to go all around, And then we'll garnish the sides with some more cake crumbs. And everybody will get a slice like this. How does that look? Very nice. I think it's a lot more elegant than just tossing a few cake crumbs onto the top of the cake and calling it finished. How does that look? Good enough for your best little dinner party. Look at that. Almost done. Very nice. Now to finish it off, I'm just going to put some red cake crumbs along the bottom border, just like this, just a little bit. Tap them away. We're all done, and there it is. There's your red velvet cake, a red velvet cake. Not something to be confused with chocolate cake, and certainly something wonderful. Okay, our beautiful red velvet cake is done. It's very red. We've got our swirls, we've got our crumb center, we've got our crumbs on the side as a garnish. All that's left now is to cut it and serve it up. Okay, red velvet cake is done. All that's left is to cut it and eat it, of course. I'm going to cut through the whole thing, and then I'll cut the next piece. We'll see what it looks like inside, and we'll give it a taste test. All right. Looks pretty nice. You can see inside. Okay, here it is cut. A very nice contrast with the white buttercream and the red cake. Its appeal is much more for the eye than for the stomach, but we're going to try it anyway, and I'm sure it's going to be delicious. All right, it's time for dessert. I've got my slice of red velvet cake, and let's try it. I've tried it a million times before. It's to live for. This is the red velvet cake that I remember as a child from the 60s. If you want to try this yourself, go to Facebook, put a like on Thom's table. The recipe is there. Make this for yourself. Glad I saved some of my champagne. This is dessert. Thank you for watching Thom's Table. I'll see you on Facebook, and I'll see you next time.